I want to thank NATAS and the Board of Governors and all the recipients here tonight. I want to thank Rebecca Schulte and Comcast Sportsnet. When I went to Rebecca and told her that I was going to retire, the first words out of her mouth was, "Let's have a party." Now, you can take that two ways, okay? I took it, well, she wants to have a party for me. The other part was, well, thank God we got rid of him. And I also want to say that it's nice that you have me up here first because in the Gold Circle thing, it's the early bird special, and this is, this was a big night for me, so big that I got new tennis balls for my walker to get up here. I wonder what the Board of Governors was thinking when they sat down to determine this. Now, Silver Circle, there's 7 people that are getting into that. They get to the Gold Circle, well, the herd gets thinned at some point, So they have Mr. Davis, Sid Davis, who I've met through mutual friends, Jim, the great Jim Snyder, and even greater Anne-Marie Snyder, and we've been friends for years. Well, Sid Davis, and you saw in the biography, he was at the Kennedy assassination. He was on the plane with Lyndon Johnson. So they go, well, we got him. Do we have anybody else? Well, we can't just put one person up there. Well, we got a guy that ran Oswald Rabbit and Marvin Monkey. Is he breathing? Throw him in. So, in years in the past, we used to do credits. And I thought, and credits were good. I think that was important. I know my family always got a kick of seeing my name up there. But they also became political and tough because you would either forget somebody or misspell their name or put them in the wrong thing. So with that in mind, I just want to say this. I want to thank everybody who I ever met, but especially the bartender at the cocktail reception. Now, the other thing is that you have to know your audience. You have to know the parameters of where you can go and not go. So there are stories that you just can't tell. So I'm not going to tell you the story about how Chris Gordon and I sat outside the labor room in Holy Cross Hospital with a bottle of scotch while Glenn Brenner and his wife were in the labor room having their first child, and how Glenn came out every 10 minutes and we threw him a shot, and then he would go back in. I'm not going to tell you the story about how when I directed the show A.M. Washington at Channel 7, I directed with a lady, very nice lady, Ruth Hudgens, and a fellow named Ed Walker. Now, a lot of people know who Ed Walker is. A lot of people don't know who Ed Walker is, but Ed Walker was blind. So that changed some challenges as far as directing. He had an earpiece, and I would say, face right, face left, depending on the camera. But I also, I'd say 10 seconds, we're coming back, and I'd go, Ed, 5 seconds. Ed, by the way, the person you're about to interview is completely naked. But he is wearing a straw hat, so don't worry about that. And I'm not going to tell you the story about how one night Gordon Peterson, Glenn Brenner, Pat Collins, Mike Buchanan, Frank Herzog, and I closed the Dancing Crab. And we went to Tasty Diner. And Frank and I left early before the rest of them. Frank decided that he was going to moon them in the Tasty Diner. And how he explained to the policeman, who I saw coming, why his pants were at his knees at 2 o'clock in the morning on Cheltenham Drive in Bethesda, Maryland. And Buck and Chick, you're off the hook. I'm not telling any stories about you. 50 years. The way I can relate this, and this is in my mind, there are 2 movies that I'm a big fan of. And, oh, by the way, let me just say this as I get into this. I'm the Dick Vermeil of speaking. I cry at flowers blooming, okay? So you're going to have to hold me on this. There's 2 movies that I relate to. One is called It's a Wonderful Life, and the other is called Carousel, the musical Carousel. Now, all of you have seen A Wonderful Life, and if you haven't, get yourself a television set. But in A Wonderful Life, the first scene is Clarence the Angel talking to his boss, and they're looking down at George Bailey's life, and they're just kind of going over it. In Carousel, the main character is Billy Bigelow, and he's with the Star Master, and they're sitting up there taking inventory on his life. So I'm going to bear with me while I sort of do a skit or a scenario based on that kind of premise. So here we go. So who do we got next? Well, we got this guy, Ernie Baur. Well, what did he do? Well, what's he got going? Well, he's going to be born in Bethesda, Maryland, and he's going to grow up in Bethesda with wonderful family, and he's going to meet people that are going to be his friends. He's going to meet them at 5, 6, 7 years old. They're going to be his friends 60 years later. And he's going to grow up in sort of this nostalgic era that people talk about where you can go out and play and do and things like that. And just going to have a great time. He's going to go to Our Lady of Lourdes in Bethesda. And then he's going to go to BCC High School and just have a great time. When he graduates from BCC, he's kind of floundering around. He goes to college, and that's not working out too well. And it's also in 1965 and 66 when there's a terrible war going on, and he's eligible for the draft. He's number 1A. He's going to get drafted. He's going to Vietnam. But we took care of that. We're going to get him in the Maryland National Guard. And this is an important thing because he gets in the Maryland National Guard a week before the draft hits him. So instead of going to Vietnam, he goes to Fort Dix, he does basic training, he comes back, and he ends up getting a job at Channel 9. Now he said, now what we're going to do is going to put him into broadcasting. And broadcasting he's going to love. The most creative thing that he could be in, the most exciting thing. And he's going to work at Channel 9, and he's going to meet and work with people for over 50 years at various stations, and meet and work with some of the great talent that you'll ever see. And there will be a fellow named Mick Colgan who's going to take him under his wing and teach him how to treat people, how to act, how to be somebody that knows that everybody that's involved in the broadcast is a team. Nobody's better than the other person. And Mick is going to take him under his wing and mentor him that way. And the other thing is the people that are going to carry him through his career are the TDs, the audio person, the stage manager, the Chiron operator, the graphic artist, the associate producer, the ADs, producers, the management, all those people. They're the reason why he has any success whatsoever. And he's going to do it for over 50 years. And he's just going to love it. Well, that's cool. What about his personal life? That's where we do our best work. In 1971, a young lady named Lucille Huddleston graduates from Maryland. And she gets a job at the same station that he's working at. And he meets her. He remembers where he met her. He remembers who introduces. He remembers what she's wearing. And that's in May of 71. He immediately jumps into action, and 6 months later, he asks her out. And they go to a movie at the Uptown Theater called Fiddler on the Roof. And they come out, and she holds his hand, and he's cooked. They married 2 years later, and Lucille has her own success story that, you know, she worked at MAL in the promotion department. She's an accomplished singer, actress. She works she produces a Cherry Blossom Parade. She produces Tony Perkins that allows him to go to the network, produces Holly Morris, does things for the Fox Morning News. And she's her own success. Is she pretty? Oh, are you kidding? When they walk in a room, even she makes even Ernie look good. They get married in 1973, and they're married for over 43 years and counting. And they have 2 kids. They have a daughter named Kayleen Noni Baur. And she's born, and the night that she's born, the nurses say, it's a girl, and look at those eyelashes. And she bats them at Ernie for the rest of her life. She grows up to be a beautiful, successful woman. She goes to Boston College and graduates magna cum laude. To this day, Ernie can't spell. And she works for the Audi Corporation, and she becomes an executive and a manager, and she meets a fellow named Sean O'Black, and they get married, and Sean's not only Ernie's son-in-law, but he's his friend. And they have 2 children, Colin William and Claire Lucille. Well, you said he had 2 kids. Oh, yeah, he had a son, Ernest Kevin Huddleston Baur. That's a lot of names. Yeah, well, I think they were going to add more, but they just got tired of writing. Ernest grows up, we think, and he goes to Clemson University. Didn't they win a national championship? Yeah, but that's not a big deal. And Ernest gets involved and goes in the broadcasting business and becomes one of the most successful technical directors in the business. He works for the NFL and Fox, WWE World Wrestling, baseball, basketball, lacrosse, and he's just as good as it can get. And he meets a girl named Vanessa. Now, one thing that Ernest gets from not only his dad, but his grandfather and his uncle, is that they marry way over their heads. And Vanessa and Ernest get married, and they have a little girl named Eleanor Catherine. So Ernie has 3 grandchildren. Yep, he does. And he thinks about this line that he hears all the time, that if he'd known grandchildren would be this much fun, he'd have had them first. So that's it? Well, yeah, that's it. He said, well, wait a minute. I'm looking through this thing. There's no bad times. Well, yeah, the bosses sometimes, they pluck somebody out. They say, look, this guy's skating through life, and he's going to have wonderful times for the rest of his life. And Ernie happened to be one of them. Wow. Will you thank us? Oh, yeah, every day of his life. Thank you.
Thank, thank you so much, Ernie, and congratulations to you and Lucille and the whole family. And we're all so very proud to have you not only as a colleague, but also as a friend over these years. Thank you so much.